In this video, I will take you on a tour of Norwich Cathedral, as well as some spots in the city of Norwich that are connected with the cathedral. Norwich Cathedral is considered to be one of the great medieval cathedrals of England. Construction began in the late 11th century, not long after the Battle of Hastings. In 1096, Bishop Herbert de Lozinga decided to establish his cathedra in Norwich and began to build a cathedral in this location. He also founded a monastery attached to the cathedral. More about his cathedra, or bishop's throne, when we tour the inside of the cathedral. This location is called Pole's Ferry, named after John Pole, who was a ferryman here during the reign of Elizabeth I. The Watergate is medieval, and the ferry house was built around 1600 with later Georgian additions. This location was used in the transport of cathedral building supplies in the 12th century. Back then, it was much more feasible to transport the heavy stones needed for the cathedral via water than roadways. A canal was dug along this path here that took the French stone and other building materials up to the cathedral. Though the canal has since been filled in, we can see today the Watergate, slipway, and gateway arch of the ferry house, reminding us of the importance of this location to the history of Norwich and specifically the cathedral.
You can see the cathedral spire in the background, but this gate here is the entrance to the bishop's palace.
The Ethelbert Gate was completed in 1325 as a monument to the Church of St. Ethelbert, which was burned down during an extremely violent ruckus between the monks and the citizens of Norwich back in 1272. It is a superb example of early medieval flint flushwork, inlaid in decorative patterns with dressed freestone. This is probably the first example of this type of geometric design being created in flintstone in England. Norwich Cathedral has stood for over 900 years as a Christian presence in the heart of Norfolk. It is built on the foundations of the medieval hostelry, where guests would have been welcomed into the Benedictine monastery, which then served the cathedral. I saw this font and thought it was most unusual, and here's the reason why. It was originally used for making chocolate in the Cayley's chocolate factory, and when the factory closed, it was refashioned into a font. I was expecting some 700-year-old stone font, so that's quite surprising. What's really interesting is standing here looking at the base of the font and seeing the cathedral and stained glass reflected in it. It reminds me of going to visit the Bean in Chicago. It's noteworthy that most of the 12th century architecture of the original cathedral can be admired today, as it was not torn down and altered in subsequent centuries, as is often the case. We were in Hereford Cathedral a couple days ago, and it also has beautiful Norman arches. The difference is that in Hereford, the cathedral is held up with these large, round, cylindrical piers or columns, whereas here, it's a series of archways incorporated around central columns, around this linear style of stone, but not actually pillars. The nave features a stunning combination of Norman arcades and triforium, as well as soaring 15th century vaulting, and a truly incredible collection of carved bosses. There are 225 bosses in the nave, arranged to tell the biblical stories from the creation of the world to the Day of Judgment. Here there are some kind of twisted cylindrical columns, which remind me a bit of Durham Cathedral. And then these archways are different. They've been embellished with crests and bosses and beautiful paint colors.
One unusual feature in this cathedral, as compared to other cathedrals in England, is the rounded apse behind the high altar. The view of the east end with the choir and rounded apse rising up through the Norman triforium and arcading to the 15th century ceiling is one of the most stunning sights in any English building. The pulpit is a Victorian addition to the cathedral, made of marble and stone with Christian symbols and designs from the Gothic Revival style of ecclesiastical art in the late 1800s.
Here is the choir, which is a really beautiful central part of the cathedral.
There is a second pulpit in the choir area. It is a beautifully carved wooden pulpit, also from the Victorian era. Across from the pulpit in the choir is a throne that looks rather like a cathedra, but it is not the bishop's throne. It is probably the abbot's stall or prior's throne. The choir stalls were built in the 15th century and are decorated with a remarkable array of misericord carvings.
The choir area is beautiful and amazing in how well preserved it is, and there are so many misericords, which always have interesting stories to tell. And this one shows a green man, which I always find green men interesting in churches and cathedrals since they seem so pagan. This is the bishop's throne, and Norwich is the only cathedral in Northern Europe to have always kept its original ancient throne behind the high altar facing the congregation. The throne incorporates two pieces of stone under a wooden chair, and these stones are believed to date back to at least the 8th century. This globe with a cross in the middle and candles around it is symbolic of the universal prayer for peace. Definitely very relevant these days.
The west window was created in the 15th century and today features a 19th century glass design of the lives of Christ and Moses.
This is the 14th century pelican lectern. I would not have known that was a pelican. Looks like a mythical bird creature. Located right underneath the central tower, where the cross of the cathedral footprint meets. After the giant archways in the nave, this little archway seems so low. And there's the doorway to the Treasury. This is the reliquary arch. Originally, it was used to display holy relics, and today it's used to house the treasury. This is the Jesus chapel, and on the vaults and arches, you can see some of the wall painting, which probably covered most of the building originally. So this is an altar from Norman times, and this altar painting is from 1510, showing the wise men visiting baby Jesus. This is the Chapel of St. Savior, which is the War Memorial Chapel, showing the different flags from the regiments.
This is St. Luke's Chapel. It is dedicated to St. John the Baptist and is used as the parish church for St. Mary in the Marsh. The reredos is a fine example of religious paintings from this period. The Bishop of Norwich gave this reredos to the cathedral in the late 1300s.
This font is a Seven Sacrament font from the 1400s.
When the priest holds the bride's and groom's hands. And
marriage.
And then here we've got the Eucharist, the priest holding up, it's called the elevation.
Penance.
You've got the priest and the penitent kneeling there. You
That's
can see this
baptism.
one, because this is baptism, because you can see the shape of the font.
Yeah, baptism because of the font. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But sadly, it was badly damaged by the iconoclasts who came and removed all the heads and other religious iconography that they felt was evil.
We saw this medieval graffiti on the walls of the cathedral and didn't really understand what it was all about. Later, a member of the cathedral staff explained to us that these are basically poor man's memorials. When common folk had a family member die, they wanted their loved ones to be remembered in the cathedral, but obviously they didn't have the vast funds required to build a chantry chapel in their honor, or install a stained glass window or elaborate memorial on the wall. So they took a knife and carved their own memorial inscription to remember their deceased family.
Everywhere around the cathedral, there's such an interesting layering of architectural elements from different centuries. Norman arches, perpendicular Gothic fan vaulting.
Now let's explore the vast and well-preserved cloisters.
I do love the fan vaulting here in Norwich Cathedral, but Gloucester Cathedral still has a place in my heart as favorite for the fan vaulting and the cloisters there. But these wall paintings are very nice.
In addition to the main church, the medieval cloisters also feature well-preserved bosses throughout the vaulting that are a delight to peruse. In all, there are over 1,000 bosses throughout the entire cathedral.
This is a really nice boss. You can see the angel. Well, there's the lamb with the St. George's flag, and I don't know, choruses of angels. I don't know what that is.
Many of the bosses in the cloister are not of Christian symbols. There are many carvings of the Green Man and a wide assortment of strange animals and fantastical beasts, as well as medieval people from a vast variety of professions and stations in life. By studying these bosses, you see a fascinating cross-section of medieval society.
So this doorway is really interesting. It almost looks wood, but I think it's just painted stone.
I loved this view of the spire from within the cloisters. The beautiful spire of Norwich Cathedral is 315 feet or 96 meters tall, making it the second tallest in the country after Salisbury Cathedral. While the spire is very old, completed in 1485, it was actually the third spire in its place. The first blew down in a storm in the 1300s, and the second burned down in a fire caused by lightning in 1463.
There is a labyrinth here in the middle of the cloisters. Here is the labyrinth. I don't think I've seen that at a cathedral before. And the other thing we haven't seen at a cathedral that we can remember anyway is all these circles that are up here on toward the top of the tower. And what's going on here is I think they are setting up a set for a Shakespeare production. I think it's Twelfth Night. It's been a great day here in Norwich. I really enjoyed seeing that beautiful cathedral, and I hope you enjoyed coming along with me. Please check out a couple of my other favorite cathedrals here in these videos, and check the description where I'll put links to many more. Thank you so much for watching this video, and do something good in the world today.